Hey, Maddie. How are you doing?
Hello. Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. I mean, I'm freezing. You
Yeah,
know, it
Baltic.
goes
We
without
need summer,
saying.
don't we? Yeah.
Goes without saying at this sort of time.
Yeah. It's
And
awful.
so, I know, awful, awful.
Hmm.
Um, we've got something good to talk about today that's been suggested by a listener. And so I
Oh,
love that.
exciting.
We
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so
Send us more.
yes, we're going to talk about how boundaries can get blurred when you work with your friends.
Oh,
Someone
juicy.
what
Love.
I know.
Yeah.
Someone wanted us to discuss all things blurred
Hmm.
boundaries while working with friends, and I think this is very, very common in the hair and beauty industry. And
Hmm.
so, to be really clear, what we're talking about here is when you employ your friends or you are working for your friend. And so,
Right.
we've talked about things similarly in the past, like we talk about how we work together a lot and how we
Hmm.
manage that. But the difference is ours is an equal partnership when we work together. You don't
Yeah.
employ me, I don't employ you.
Yeah.
It's none of that. I don't rent a chair from you. You don't rent a chair
Yeah.
from me. It's an equal thing. And so I think what happens sometimes is we're employed by our friend or we employ our friends, and there's a power dynamic difference.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Someone's in charge, and so that's really what we're going to discuss. And I think it's so interesting, this, and I think it is such a good topic for someone to ask us to discuss, because when I think about it and I think about people opening salons, you hire your friends. Like, you
Yeah.
just do.
Yeah.
When I think about places I've worked or people I see opening salons, they take their friends with them from where they were working before, as a good example. But it's so
Hmm.
common that you hire your friends. And I'm thinking about, my experience and also other people's when I'm talking to them. I think when you open a salon and you hire all your best mates and you're all so hopeful and delighted, and the early days of that can really feel like a co-op, like
Yeah.
it is equal, because
Hmm.
you've probably left a job to go and work for your friend, and you will have talked about setting the salon up, and you will have talked about the ideals about how it's going to run, and so there can be this illusion that it's a co-op and that
Yeah.
everyone has a say. But I
Yeah.
feel that down the line that changes, because everyone's responsibilities change and lives change, and it doesn't matter if you feel like you're in a co-op, you're not, and
Yeah.
all the responsibility falls on the salon owner when push comes to shove.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I think it's down the line, at least 5 years in, really, when this blurred boundaries problem starts to rear its ugly head.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to talk about that today, Maddie. I think it
Yeah.
would be good. What do
It's
you
a great
think?
topic. Yeah, I have lots of experience of this, like mainly in the negative. Lots of lessons learned when I was a little baby boss. And you're totally right. I really remember those times of like sitting around with like Pinterest and being like, oh, this is where we can have everything, and this is what the branding's going to be like. And then you realize one of you is signing the lease, the other one is not. um,
Yeah.
Very different, like you say, in terms of responsibility. And I found it hard. I've employed friends and then I've become very friendly with employees. Like my default is, agent says you can just put me in a bloody room of people. I'll be like, I've made 10 friends. Um,
Yeah.
I'm a very friendly person. I like to be friends with people. And I found that really hard when it came to any sort of discipline, because it didn't feel like a part of how a business works. It felt like a conflict between friends, and it was very, very hard to
Yes.
discipline someone who you have a really good friendship with and then try and just do that on a Tuesday afternoon and then try and be friends again on the weekend. That's where I found
Yeah.
that really difficult.
Yeah.
What kind of things do you see, or what experience have you got of this?
I've got personal experience from this. I've been employed by friends a couple of times,
Yeah.
and I can see how it was hard for them on
Yeah.
reflection. But I also, but I think what I found most hard about it was that I felt like the rules changed all the time. And so
Yeah.
sometimes I felt like my friend would come to me in boss mode to ask
Mm-hmm.
me something. But then other times I felt like they came to me in friend mode and were like, can you just?
Mm-hmm.
And this changed, and I never knew which one I was going to get. And this
Yeah.
made me feel out of sorts and a bit unsafe, because
Mm-hmm.
there was no consistency. I felt like it felt a little bit manipulative, that
Yeah.
I got the friend when it was sometimes, and yeah, and it didn't seem to work the other way round was what I felt. Or I might go to
Yeah.
them as a friend sometimes, but get the boss response. And
Yeah.
it just was messy. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I go to them in a very professional way, and they'd be like, "Why are you speaking to us like that?" And
Why
it
being so
just was
formal?
hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just thought, oh, we need in so much reflection.
Mm-hmm.
We needed to have figured that out. But for me as
Mm-hmm.
an employee, it was hard because I was never too sure what I was getting, friend or boss, friend or boss.
Yeah.
And
No,
I'm
that
sure
makes
that they
sense.
think similar things as well. And so,
Yeah.
I think I hear salon owners and employees talk about this sort of thing to me a lot,
Yeah, no,
in
same. I
my
see this
work.
loads. And I think like for me it's like the lines get really blurred, and that's I think where this flip flopping comes is like which side are you on at that point. So it's really, really hard because they do get blurred or there's loads of crossover.
Yes.
And I think with friendships, it feels like the stakes are higher because you think, you know, if I discipline this person and they leave the business, or I have to sack this person, like it's not just the work relationship employee employer, it's will my friendship withstand this? So it just feels like the stakes are super high.
All of this, I think that, when your work and your home life get blurred in that way, home starts impacting work and work starts impacting home. It's this
Yeah.
blurred boundaries is what the person said they wanted us to discuss, and it's such a
Yeah.
good word. It's such a good
Yeah.
phrase because that's exactly what happens. Work and home, social life, security, all that gets so blurred, and it's very difficult to navigate, I think,
Yeah.
isn't it? Just totally. You can
Yeah. And
see
is
that
this what
completely.
and I can totally imagine this is the kind of stuff that you're talking about with your coaching clients because you do obviously a lot of stuff around leadership and stuff and things.
Totally, totally. And I think in the main, I seem to coach more salon owners than employees.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, I would say, but I have coached both, and I
Yeah.
just think it's just so hard. I think I see stuff like this when I've coached employees. They talk to me sometimes about things like they're worried about their salon owner friend, and they're
Ah, that's
worried about
interesting.
yeah, it can come so that honestly, it's so layered, this blurred
Mm,
boundaries thing, because it can go in both directions in ways you've not thought of. But
mm.
employees talk to me sometimes about how they're worried about the boss who's their friend.
Yeah.
They're worried about how much stress they're under, and then they start behaving in ways that employees don't necessarily need to, because they're trying to take care of the person who's in charge of their security, is what you got to think about, really. Because if your
That's
mate goes under and your
complicated.
boss goes under, your
Yeah.
security in the world goes. And so people start behaving in ways that's unnecessary for an employee, because
Yeah.
they do know what's happening too much behind the curtain with the business. Do you see what I
Yeah.
mean? And so
Yeah.
things like that sort of thing happens,
Yeah.
for the employee. But also, I hear salon owners talk about how they don't want their staff worrying about. But it's hard because you want to talk to your friend in the pub about what's happening with your business, but then you don't want them to worry. So it's messy. It's messy. But I also hear things like, I don't want to give my mate an appraisal. It feels weird.
Yeah.
How
Imagine if
how
you
do
give
I do an appraisal?
I know I had this
4
conversation.
out of 10 for
I
retail.
know. I was on holiday with my friend, as I regularly am, and we were talking about this. So we're like, should we do? Because we both used to work in the same call center, and there was a like a three
I know
sixty
that.
feedback, and it would be like feedback about
Oh,
you, and I was like, I'm going to start ranking all of yours like holiday buddy, like how out of 10, and you'll get put on a performance development plan if you're not being a good friend. But yeah, like
yes,
joking
all of
aside, it
that.
is, like that's
Well, that's
a grim thing
basically
to
what
think
you
of.
do.
Yeah.
You've got to
Yeah.
do. And I remember speaking to someone once, and they were like, "It's hard to do this with your friends." And I think sometimes what happens is this isn't set up in the beginning. You just don't do it
Yeah.
because you think we'll just chat about this in the pub or over dinner or over a coffee, in our normal life, because that's what you did before you set the business up. Like you said, you talked
Yeah.
about what your branding was going to be like, the wallpaper, the mirrors, and it's that co-op feel, but
Hmm.
it's not. And so
Yeah.
things like, doing appraisals doesn't happen. But what about talking about someone's career path, what education they're going to go on? All of that kind of becomes more casual. And I'm not sure that is, I'm not sure it's brilliant. Well, it's not brilliant.
Yeah.
It's hard for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really
What
hard.
about, what else?
I've seen it where this is really tricky, one where an employer has a number of employees and one of them is their friend. So maybe it was like, Jackie came along when I started, but now we've expanded and
Yeah.
we've got Sue and Mary. And either Jackie gets good things given to her and then is being seen by the other two as like, oh, she's getting made favourites because her and the gaffer are besties. Or in the other side, like on the opposite side, Jackie maybe gets passed up for things because she the owner doesn't want to be seen as playing favourite. So maybe it's like I would love to give you this promotion, but it'll piss the other girls off, even though she
Yeah.
deserves it and she's done the work required to do that,
Yeah. I also think Jackie could get treated as a manager when she's not
Yes. Oh, I see
by
that a
the
lot where
other
it's like you're my
people.
right hand, yeah, because you know me really
Yeah.
well, but you're not getting paid.
But you're not getting paid for it, and
Yeah.
there's none of the bonuses for that. But I use you as my confidant, and
Yeah.
also the staff go to Jackie
Uh-huh.
with problems about the boss.
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah, the gossip
Oh,
side of it where
poor
like,
Jackie.
yeah, because you do, normally you'd go to the pub on a Friday, you'd go, oh God, this has happened at work. And, your friends might know the goings on of the different dynamics. But if you do that with your friend who you work with, and then
Yeah.
she then has this knowledge about other staff, which you shouldn't be doing as a
Yeah, but
oh,
maybe
there's a
the staff
lot.
just go to Jackie and they're like, oh, I want to say this to whoever the boss
Yeah.
is, but I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
sure. And then they end up
Yeah.
having to manage that. Oh,
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
tough,
it's a
isn't it, poor Jackie?
mess. Yeah.
She's got a really tough time. And
Yeah.
I think what you've really got to weigh up in your head, it comes down to this, is how are you going to handle keeping your work and your home life separate, and how are
Yeah.
you going to handle as an employee and as an employer knowing stuff about your boss or your employee and not letting that affect your judgment at work? So
Yeah.
your friend's having a tough time and then they're off sick. How do you not put those two things together? Maybe they're
Yeah.
just sick. Like,
Yeah.
you've got all this, you're privy to more information about your employer or your employee than in other circumstances. And how do you not start adding all these things up to the decisions that you're making? Like, is it possible to do that? Is it smart to do that? In some ways, because you want to keep empathy for your friend, but sometimes it can be really difficult to have empathy for your friend as a person because they're doing your head in at work as your employee or your employer.
Yeah.
And then your friendship struggles because they're talking about something else and you're so mad about something that your empathy for them is hard. And so I think it's tough, this on a friendship.
Yeah. I
It's
can
really
imagine a scenario. In fact, I think I've had this scenario where a friend works for you, calls in sick on a day that you're really, really busy, like last minute rings in sick, but because you're friends with them, or a friend of a friend has dobbed them in and said, oh, I saw so and so down the pub. One, you've got to deal with that and think, well, if I didn't know that, if I wasn't their friend, I wouldn't have known that. So I would have just taken them at face value that they were sick. And maybe if you have other employees, you think, well, I would have done it if it was them, and just, being pissed off or whatever. But then you have to deal with that, deal with the whole rebooking clients, all the stuff that goes on admin wise. And then you have to see them at your other friend's christening on Saturday and not be really annoyed with them that you did this and, you did this to me at work. Yeah, are you all right? You're better now, are you? I was the night before. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be like there becomes two versions of you if you're not careful. And I think, how do you keep that together? But also, I'm thinking about this. What if your friend's struggling with money, but you're their employer?
I know.
Like, might you feel pressure to pay them more?
Yeah.
Oh God, it is. It's hard, isn't it?
So,
there is a lot.
let's talk solutions, because we've talked about a lot of problems. So what do you think are the kind of solutions or things people should be maybe considering?
Well, I think you've got to think about what we talked about at the beginning is this is about blurred boundaries. And so what we've got to do is get really clear boundaries. And so as always, this is much better if we've had a conversation up front, if we've set our stall out up front.
Yeah.
That's what we like. But that's so often not the case. Like if you're listening to this, thinking about employing your friends or going working for your friends, you're laughing. Like this is the best
Yeah.
episode ever. But most people are going to be listening to this, been working for their mate for 10 years
Yeah.
and going, oh, this is happening to us sometimes. But I think you've got to start making clear boundaries that you're both agreeing to. And it's things like, and I think this is about the big conversations. You have big conversations about work at work, and you have big conversations about personal life outside of work.
Yeah.
And you don't do both. And so it's like, this doesn't mean you can't have a chat about your kids in the staff room. It's not that. It's more like if there's something big going on in your life, you've got to try and at least have that conversation, not in the office or not in the staff room or whatever. And if you want to do an appraisal, you don't do it in the pub with your mate, you do it at work. Even though it might seem like a great idea, it's not. And so you've got to just try and hold a boundary of what's big enough to be out of work and what's big enough to be in. That sort of thing, I think, is important. And I think it's really hard. I do think
Really
that is
hard.
tough. Even thinking about that, I'm thinking that's tough.
Yeah.
But you've got to figure it out and be respectful of each other. I think you've got to do appraisals for your best mate, even if it's weird and awkward.
Yeah.
And even if you're both laughing and going, this is awkward, eventually it won't be. It'll just be like, right, let's do it. And you've got to create a space for your friend as your employee that they're allowed to ask questions, query things, ask for a pay rise, ask for time off, ask for certain education. That this is all about psychological safety. You've got to create a space where people can ask questions and they don't want to be like, oh, I can't ask her that, because they deserve their rights as an employee.
Yeah.
And I think as the employee, you've got to be respectful of your friend giving the appraisal. And so I think do them even when it's weird. That's the big thing that I think is don't let stuff go because you're friends, because this is what will cause the problems down the line.
It'll
when
come
people
up,
feel like I'm not getting education because I work for my friend and they've got no money at the minute. I'm not getting this. That's where I think the resentment starts. And so you've got to do all those things. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I'm a massive fan of appraisals anyway. And again, just because they do create that space where it's like, this is a safe conversation in which to be like, are things working? Is there anything that you need from me? Is there anything, what's went well? What can we do better? And they are. They do feel really awkward, but they get easier. I would approach it like this and think, would I treat someone else like this if I didn't have a personal relationship with them? So, can we sort of separate those sort of lenses and vice versa? Like, would I treat someone like this if I did? So, and that's both in the positive and the negative. So, for example, would I ask this from my boss if they weren't my friend? Like, if I wasn't mates with them, would I ask them for, 3 weeks off in December or whatever it is? Fully boots. Or would I ask this from my employee if they weren't my friend? Are we taking the piss a little bit and getting them to stay a bit later and work through a few lunches and stuff because you're pulling the friendship card?
At the weekend.
Come and do this wedding with me. That sort of thing.
Just all of that sort of stuff. It's messy, isn't it? It's very blurred. And I think that, we talk about secret deals in people pleasing a lot. And I think that this can absolutely come into this, where we make presumptions from our friend that if I do this, they'll do this. Secret deal is all about quid pro quo. It's just not discussed. And I think a lot of that is going on in when friends are working together. We make, this is my friend, she'll do this, but they might not be able to because it's not smart for the business. But, we talk more about secret deals in, I think it's episode 9. And so go take a listen to Secret Deals if you don't know what we're talking about. It's going to change your life. It's absolutely, it solves so many problems, doesn't it? But
so good,
I think essentially it's this, isn't it? The solutions to this is having frank, difficult conversations, and it's about being respectful in both directions. It's being respectful of your friend as your employer, and it's being respectful of your friend as your employee. But it
Yeah.
is all about having tough conversations and maybe making the rules together in some ways.
Yeah.
Although the employer ultimately has to make the rules of how they want to make the business, and the
Yeah.
employee has to ultimately decide, does this work for me? You know, there's even that, Maddie, I'm thinking about though. Can I leave working for my friend?
But do you know what? I had
You
that
know,
thought
but I
midway
think,
through, and I thought, oh my God, your friend handing in the notice. What happens the week
yeah,
after when
because
you
it's
go
good for
for,
them.
yeah,
Yeah, and they go work at
very
another
hard.
salon that they think's better for them. But you've got to make decisions that it's not going to affect your friendship. You
Yeah.
just have to, and I think it's like a marriage. You've got to work hard at that.
Oh,
You've got
yeah.
to work
Like
hard at
doubly.
something
Yeah.
like that, haven't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's all have difficult conversations, stick to the things that you do in business, even when it feels a little bit weird. They're the
Yeah.
solutions that I think. But
A
I'd
lot of
so love to
adulting.
hear from anyone who's, oh my
Yeah.
God, so much adulting and so much grown up, difficult
Oh, no.
conversations. But
Yeah.
I think it could be so brilliant as well to have your friends on side, isn't it? You know, all of that. But I'd love to hear from anyone listening to this who's in this situation on whichever side and how this
Yeah.
has been for them. You
Yeah.
know, we'll keep your confidence, but do message us and let us know how that is impacting you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think everyone can relate to this.
great.
It's so common in our industry. Yeah. I love this, Haley.
I think everyone's works for their friend or been employed by their friend
Yeah.
or employed their friend, hasn't there? This has
Yeah.
happened to me in so many different places.
Yeah.
I've done this, so it's so true. Great conversation, Maddie. Great
Love, love,
conversation.
love.
I
Thank
love
you.
it. So let's move on to another great conversation, which is the hyperfocus chats. It's my
Really,
favourite. I love to know
the whole
what.
point of this whole series of podcasts, let's face it.
We'll do a whole spin off. What is your hyperfocus this week?
So I always forget what my previous ones were. I wish I'd written them down somewhere. But anyway,
Yeah.
I think this is the one that maybe is a full circle thing, and I'm getting really bang into stationery stuff again. Like it just goes in these waves where I'll be like digital for a bit, much to Aidan's joy, because we work together. It's much easier for him and everyone else. And then I'll be like, no, I'm going analog, and I'm printing out calendars and writing things by hand. And I got them about
Very
this
much
time.
me.
Oh God! Oh my God! The
It's
paper
my
stuff.
zone.
I got them. I got them about a year ago, and then classically lost them, and then I got them again. Is erasable gel pens, all multicolours, and you can rub them out because I
Ooh.
obviously make lots of
On
little
paper.
mistakes on paper. So good. They're from
Sure.
Amazon. Other retailers probably that are less grim, but yeah, multicolours, so it's great for our brains, and also you can rub them out. So those in particular, but just generally like any stationery, I'm filling up like
Yes.
I take notes when I read things. Again, Aidan's like, why don't you just highlight on a Kindle? And I'm like, no, I have to
I don't
physically
know how to do
write
that.
them. You
Oh,
press and
no.
hold and drag it, and it says like add a highlight. But then, Haley, when are you ever going to look at it? Is my
When are you going
question
to look at it?
for
I'll tell
us.
you what, I might use that if you could just go and find all your highlighted sections.
You can.
Like, is this. Oh, that's quite good, that, isn't it? I mean, I'm
Yeah,
not
but
going to
then
do it, but
then I forget. So,
it sounds
well,
quite good.
I read loads of nonfiction, lots of like business books. So I'm like, I want to, and a lot of them have like exercises and things to like work through and think about. So I like to kind of do it as I'm reading it. Otherwise, I always think you just read it and go, that was really good, but I can't remember anything at
Yeah,
all.
I'll do that later.
Yeah, so that's
Absolutely
where my
not.
nice little notebooks, but it's like the house is like full of notebooks. I'm like, that's for that book. And then halfway through I
Yeah.
started that one, and then yeah, so I'm just
Yes.
back on my usual
And
crack.
can
What
no
about
one
you?
read? Well, I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, can anyone read your writing but you?
It starts off really nice. I was reading a notebook the other day where I was writing on I like to do this on a plane because there's no phone signal, so I love to read and I'll make my little
Yes.
notes. And I must have been landing or taken off because the writing goes quite erratic. I hope I was anyway, otherwise there's no excuse. But you can tell how much of a hyper focus I'm in by how wild my handwriting goes, but I
Yeah,
can
because
generally read
mine's
it
wild.
back. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else can, but maybe it's like a secret code. I'll be like, well, I don't want anyone else to read me mad notes.
Mine's wild. I
Yeah.
find that my brain is working faster than my hand can go.
I sometimes miss the first letter off of things, and then I'm like, oh,
I
I have to
spell
put the
things
first letter.
wrong.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And like, if I was writing something like industry,
Uh huh.
I would spell the strip it wrong, definitely.
Yeah. 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 Or I'll
And it
start putting
happens
letters from another
constantly.
word. Yeah. Fast brain. That's
Yeah,
us, isn't
that
it?
happens to me
Yeah.
a lot. But I can
Yeah.
type even slower. Like my
Yeah.
writing is faster than my typing.
Oh, see, I'm a fast typer.
I know that's why you type all the notes for
Yeah,
this.
that's yeah.
And
For
for us
everything.
generally.
Yeah,
I
I'm
write
always
notes that
like
I write that are
tip
illegible, but it
tapping.
helps my brain. But
We're
you're
so
the
funny.
typer. You type
Yeah,
fast, even with them big nails of yours.
I know.
Um, my Maddie, I am deep in where am I going to go on holiday? Like that's what's
The
happening for me.
dream hairdresser crack. Haley, you going anywhere nice on holiday
Yeah,
this year?
yeah, all of that. And so I'm deep in the thinking about. I'm a bit of a one for city breaks when it's colder.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't want to go to Barcelona in August. That
No,
sounds
no, no.
like hell.
Not
So
city
like
ones. You
last
want
year
a
I went.
beach? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, if I'm going to go somewhere hot when it's hot, it's set up for being hot.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
there's brollies
Pool.
and
Yeah,
aircon and pool, yeah, all of that.
yeah.
Whereas if I want to go to sit, like I went to Lisbon last year
Mm-hmm.
in November, which was fantastic. And so me and my friends are all deep into where are we going to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I often go away with a group of girls.
Mm-hmm.
We go on city breaks and stuff like that quite a lot. And then I go away with my best friend and we usually go away for a week somewhere. And it can really vary. But me and her are actually doing a competition at the moment where
Mm-hmm.
we've both got to come up with 4 holidays and present them like Dragon's Den, present them. And then we're going to make a decision on where we're going. So
Amazing.
like there's no rules. We've got a budget.
Yeah.
That's all we have is a budget. And
Mm-hmm.
everyone goes away, comes up with different scenarios, and then we're going to pick. So
This
who
is
knows where we're going?
amazing. Well, when
Yeah.
I was trying to pitch a second trip to LA in
Pitch it,
6
that.
months, I was to Aiden. So we were actually, this is my thing, is when we were still there in February last year, I was like, oh, I want to come back in the summer. So I was like, I'm gonna pitch, and I was like, literally going to put together a slide deck. But it turned out that Taylor
Yes.
Swift's Eras tours was there, and I just said, should we go and see Taylor Swift in LA? Turned out it was a very easy pitch, but then I was
Yeah,
like,
the
oh, but
best
it's for
pitch
5
ever.
weeks. Yeah. So I feel like the natural sort of marketer in me comes out and I'm like, okay, what's really important to this person? And like, how can I really make it all about them? And that becomes the core. So if you want any help with pitching your PowerPoint,
Yes.
I'll sort you out.
Yeah, so that's where I am at the moment. Whenever I want to procrastinate from something important, I go and deep dive into holidays.
Same.
Yeah.
Airbnb.
Yeah.
I've been looking for. I've got a family member who's got a big birthday this year, and they want to do Lapland. And I was like, because their birthday's that time of year, and I said, say no more. So I'm going to be in another a year long obsession. So if anyone has any Lapland recommendations, because I think there's lots of different choices of where to stay.
Yes.
I also learned there's 2
You know who's going to
Laplands.
have recommendations? Is
Who?
there?
Yeah,
Emma Fowler's going to know about
I'll get on
this.
Emma. There are 2.
She's going to know.
There's Finland Lapland and there's Sweden Lapland.
Shut up.
Well, this is what just came up on. So Finland's the one that everyone goes to, where it's got like Christmas Village or whatever, Santa Claus Village it's called. But you can. It did come up saying Swedish Lapland. So I'm very confused. More confused than I thought.
I don't think I'd ever give it a moment's thought about where Lapland was.
I didn't even know it was in
Literally
Finland
never.
until I started looking.
I think I thought it was in the Antarctic.
I just thought it was its own place. Yeah.
I'd never give a moment's thought as to where that actually was, because I will never be going.
Yeah,
it's not on my. It will not be in my pitch deck.
No, okay. Well, that's frustrating because I'm about to make one anyway. But oh yeah, I can help you with a pitch deck. No bother. I definitely think I'd be a travel agent in another life. Be my dream.
Yeah, you get free holidays when you're a travel agent, don't you? Though, and sometimes, like, because you have to check places out and talk.
Yeah,
about
I did.
them.
I had this conversation in the gym. Shout out to Rachel, who's one of my gym buddies in the very early morning crew, and she is a travel agent. And we were talking about Virgin Voyages, one of my previous hyper focuses, the
Oh,
cruises, adult
yes.
only cruise. And she said that they do a thing where if you're a travel agent, like there's only a select number can go, but it's something like 200 quid to go on the cruise because you're going basically to come back and tell your clients. And I know of people
Mm.
who travel so much that they've qualified to become a travel agent. And this was a little hyper focus of mine the other week. And I thought if I could qualify, because then you get access to the software, you get something. She said you get about 10% off hotels anyway. You don't get anything off flights, but you can like book packages. And I thought, oh my God, Haley, if I got my hands on travel agent software, dangerous. So watch this space.
Oh,
I
that's
feel like
so
we've covered
funny.
about 20 hyper focuses there in one go. Future,
That
past,
it took
present.
a turn. It took a
I love it.
turn. Anyway.
Well, I'm excited
Great
for
to
next
talk
week.
to you. Yeah.
And you, really.
See what happens.
All
Great to
right,
talk to you
pal.
as always, Maddie. See you
See you in a
soon.
week. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. And don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments.
Please support those who support us and check out Timely, who we recommend as our favourite booking system for you. New customers can get 50% off their first 3 months with the code COFFEE50.